up, y'all? Happy Monday. Yo, I want to say I think we're 2 for 2, but I'll let you guys be the deciding factor of that. We got the Saraya interview dropped. Trinity has now responded back. A lot of drama is happening. Keep it locked.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.
Hey guys, my name is Jade Cargill, your former TBS champion and your future Women's World Champion, and you are watching Women's Wrestling Talk.
Bro, I'm just going to go ahead and bring the professor in the building. What's good, Professor?
What can one say after that? Happy Patriot Day. My goodness.
Yes. I mean, I forgot to ask you guys about that, but yeah, we'll talk about it.
We'll get into that, but yeah, what a great time to be a part of WWT, right? Like, I mean, when things are popping, and yeah, it's been a great time. This has been quite the week for all things WWT.
Quite the week. Oh, okay, here we go. And I mean, off of a long weekend. I mean, a long weekend for him.
Well,
Sonny Kiss in the building.
Oh, we got to go back to Friday. So you said I didn't get the Jade call on Friday. You said I lived too far, but Jade was looking generational like that. I would have drove. I would have made that trip. I would have made a way.
Jade has never looked bad, and I think TK is stuck. I think that's exactly what's happening.
I don't think that's ever happened.
No, that's never happened before. It's usually one of
groundbreaking Monday. It's a groundbreaking Monday. Everybody, I think we've completed the holy trinity of internet issues on this. We
certainly have
on this show now.
At first, I thought she was just kind of pausing for dramatic effect, but yeah, she is stuck. Yeah, her internet froze.
That would be an impressive mute if she did that.
I mean, hey, she was out there in LA with the mute challenge, so you just never know what's going to happen. But how was your weekend, sir?
It was solid. I can't complain. It's obviously I'm wearing my gear. If your team ain't undefeated, don't talk to me. But they're beginning the NFL season, so that's always a good time of year. It represents a time of year that is extremely busy for me because I work the NFL.
Oh, nice.
But I'm pretty excited. I mean, good weekend overall. How about yourself?
Very busy weekend. Started work with a new promotion, so yeah, I had 2 shows this weekend, and it was a lot of fun. I even got to meet, and I'm sure TK is going to love this. I'll have to repeat this when she comes back. I got to meet Ayla Fox. Who is the wife of AR Fox. She also works with us here at WWT. And so that was fun getting to meet her impromptu. Didn't know I was going to do that. So yeah, fun weekend. Lots of things going on. So we'll start this whole thing because there's a lot of women's conversation that's happening. And one of the pieces deals with the current AEW Women's World Champion, Saraya. Big interview dropped here on WWT at www.talkpod.com. Said, would you like to tell us what came from this? Because it has started a thing today in the wrestling world.
It is spiraling. And honestly, when I was cutting this thing up over the weekend and reading some of the interview before we dropped it today, I was actually very excited that we not only got the interview, but that Saraya was very candid in her journey. Because we're almost a year to the date of her actually appearing in AEW. So she spoke very candidly about this journey, about doing the Britt Baker rivalry and then kind of waiting her turn. And I know Big Rhea gets a bad rap for a lot of people, but she did kind of, work her way through the system and make sure that she was right, not only mentally, but physically before taking that next step. So if you haven't seen the interview with Saraya, you'll learn a lot of different things. You'll learn about what you can expect from this title run. She has her eyes set on some other gold, not notably not inside of AEW. So we might see a belt. I actually think I talked about this on a poster. We might see a belt collector thing go on with Saraya because, I mean, we we know she was out of action for a long time, but she's still very young.
Yes. Saraya is in her very early 30s, but she's been wrestling for literally 15 years. So, yeah, it's been a wild, wild time for her. And you talked about some belt collecting opportunities for her. One of the things that she said is she wanted to go after the WAW title, which is the World Association of Wrestling. She's not fully sure about which indie promotion she'd like to go after, but she specifically said she would love to battle Trinity, as in Trinity fought 2, and potentially take the Impact World Championship off of her. She also said that she'd go to New Japan and take that championship too, carry them all around. She'd be like Thanos with the championship belt. So kind of a female Kenny Omega like we saw a couple of years ago during that run. And so it makes you wonder, what could we be seeing from Saraya and possibly Trinity? And it did not take long for Trinity to respond. You care to talk about what Trinity had to say?
So this just happened. Like, this is fresh
off the presses, like straight off Twitter.
So Saraya, be careful what you ask for, because the glow hits different this era, and I don't think anybody will disagree with those sentiments. So we've seen these partnerships before, where we had AEW's kind of become the company that gives you like these different multiverses of matches and challenges. So if TK puts his booking hat on, which I know he always wants the big shock value and the big moment that we can talk about on social media, I can see this happening in the near future. Because I think the big thing about Saraya that people questioned is, why now? Why they put the title on her? Can she work a full schedule? Can she put on those matches? And I think she's ready to finally prove her doubters wrong. I think we took this trajectory just because she wanted to make sure she was right, because I think your health is more mental than physical. You can be physically ready to go, but sometimes your mind tells your body to stop. I think she's at a point where she knows she can perform up to her own standards.
It's going to be interesting. And again, Trinity's response is very intriguing, because Trinity recognizes, and I think the rest of the world does, this is not Naomi. This is Trinity. And Trinity is hitting much, much differently these days. And so I'd love to see in the chat what you guys think about the possibilities of Trinity versus Saraya. I don't know if we'd have both titles on the line, if there'd only be one title on the line. But and then I guess the other question is, do we think that Saraya's health is in a space where she could go around and be a belt collector, both winning championships in multiple promotions and ultimately defending championships in other promotions? That could get very interesting. The chat is starting to buzz, as we would imagine that it would. Good day to you, Boza. Good to see you. Cool Gamer, good to see you. Queen Stephanie is here saying she should go to Battle Club Pro. That would be very interesting to see if she could make her way there. I think she's still trying to learn who's who in the zoo in terms of indies here in America, but I think that'd be an interesting one for her to check out. Nikki says Impact Knockouts World Championship. That would be interesting. She might be the second woman to become the Impact World Champ. Who knows? So that would be very interesting. Nikki, good to see you. Boza says, can't believe that Saraya wants to take the knockout title from Trinity. Would be a good match if that happens, but Impact is still in the honeymoon phase with Trinity. I agree. That is fair. And I would wonder what would be the circumstance that would be the big enough stage for them to do that. I think I
can only see that as if Tony wanted to. If Impact said, hey, we want to get some more exposure, so we're going to allow our Knockouts title to go to Saraya so we can get more exposure on television, things like that. That's a possibility, but you can't argue trend star power right now, which goes back to that honeymoon comment. It would be tough. And it's something, honestly, that we don't need to see happen until 2024. Because there's a lot cooking in the women's division of AEW now. And I think even with most recently Jade's return, you can do some stuff there. And obviously, this character that Tony Storm has come up with is probably the most discussed thing.
Yeah, and we will get discussed thing, not to be confused with disgusting. Got it. So that goes along the lines of a very interesting comment coming from the Shadow Ranger, who says, I hope that a Trinity versus Saraya match doesn't happen, which I think,
let's unpack that. What do you mean by that, Shadow Ranger?
Yeah, unpack that. And I can certainly see both sides on this one. I think the match right now could probably hurt more than it helps, because I don't know who could sustain a loss in that match right now and still be okay, with both of them really still being fresh world champions and both of them really charting out a course in their respective promotions. I'm not sure who would end up being hit most detrimentally with a loss in this situation. So it'd be interesting. Stephanie says WWT bursts concepts and matches, and I'm glad we got this cracking. This is for sure. Shout out to All Things Women's Wrestling Talk. So for all of those who may be quoting these articles and these interviews, remember where it came from, family. It came from Women's Wrestling Talk, and I'm glad to see that we are indeed the talk of the wrestling world right now. WWT crew should be a paycheck big time if this happens. Well, hey, who knows? Nikki says, I'm good on it.
Put the words on the screen for what you just said about sourcing and stuff like that. So we just had a pretty lengthy conversation in the chat.
Yeah,
there's some things going around where it's not being accredited to the CEO of WWT, and that's just unfair.
I think there's this thing, and we've talked about this before, about journalistic integrity versus bloggers and things of that nature. And I mean, there is a thing called plagiarism. And plagiarism is when you take somebody else's work and you do not properly give them credit for it. It's actually an offense, like a legal offense. So, wrestling publications, it's not hard to credit your source, just like it's not hard to credit a source for anything that you take from anybody. So I just think it's a good one to do. So Shadow Ranger is elaborating, says Impact needs to use Trinity star power to put over one of their own talents. Having an AEW talent to be the first to beat Trinity is not a good move for Impact. What's interesting about this is I think about that AEW Impact partnership. I really can only think of one time when an Impact talent beat an AEW talent, but technically the talent who did that was an AEW talent. And I'm speaking of Christian, when Christian beat Kenny Omega for the Impact World title on an episode of Rampage. I think it was the debut episode of Rampage. The problem, though, was Christian was still very much an AEW contracted competitor. So I've not seen a scenario where someone from Impact actually went over on somebody in AEW. And so I'm really intrigued to see what could potentially
Devil's advocate on that. Wouldn't it make Trinity an even bigger star if she lapped the division and was only able to lose by somebody outside of the company? Don't you want her to look like that magnitude?
To me, that's almost the issue that we have with Ring of Honor and AEW, where your champions in Ring of Honor are lapping everybody in Ring of Honor, but then they get to AEW television and lose. Case in point, your 6-man tag team champions, your tag team champions, Aussie Open, who was crushing everybody, and then they run up against an AEW team and lose the title, and now they can't get a win. So I think, Impact would have to be careful with that, because if we're proving that Trinity is a world-class star, which she is, who came from WWE, then this ought not be an automatic loss. Let's look at some of these other comments that are, because there's a lot of them. Nikki says if she wants to be this belt collector,
her internet froze.
Understood. She should have stayed a free agent. Shadow Ranger, also Impact already led in AEW. Yeah. Let's see. Ronell, good evening to you, kind sir. Let's see. Boza says, whoever beats Trinity may get the biggest heat ever. Trinity is on a roll as Knockouts champion heading into Impact 1000. Agreed. Good evening, Eric. He says, what up, said, hail victory for our Commanders. Yeah, the Commanders, they won. God bless them. AEW and Impact working together, have been working together at Wrestling Revolver and GCW shows. Shadow Ranger, it doesn't make Trinity look better to lose to an AEW star. It makes the rest of the knockouts look weak. I agree with you.
Okay.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
It is also akin to, like I said, what happened with, because I mean, think about all of the AEW folks who went over, or excuse me, the Impact people who went over to AEW and battled AEW stars and lost. I mean, I even think about Moose when he got a world title shot, an Impact world title shot against Kenny Omega in Jacksonville, and he got beat, right? Like, there hasn't been to me, it's not a fair partnership if only one side always wins.
Right.
For it to be a fair partnership, both sides have to be able to be mutually beneficial.
Has to benefit both parties. And do you think that's going to be a deciding factor with them doing business with AEW again?
I think it is. And here's what's interesting. I think Impact right now is doing well on their own. There's not, I mean, unless AEW can somehow bring the promise to them of perhaps for a longer period of time being in larger venues and getting a larger TV deal, then there's not much that's beneficial right now for Impact partnering with AEW. And honestly, vice versa. Impact's audience isn't large enough to bring any sort of swing or uptick to what AEW is doing right now. So the partnership, from where I sit, doesn't seem very beneficial to either party at this particular point, unless they can find a mutually larger platform. And considering what AEW just did with All In, who do they really need to partner with at this point? If they proved on their own that they can pull 81,000 people in Wembley Stadium, who do they need to partner with to further what they're doing? I don't think that there's an answer for that right now.
That's fair.
So let's see. Nikki says working together as wrestlers and working together as promotions are two different things. This is true. Shadow Ranger, Moose Callahan, Deanna, Sabin, Shelly, Morrison all lost to AEW talents on TV. Yes, indeed they did. So interesting times. We'll certainly be seeing what could potentially happen here with Saraya and with Trinity. But again, you can check out the full interview with Saraya on www.talkpod.com. And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the authentic, the real, the one and only TK is in the building. How are you, boss lady?
Man, I felt like I went to the abyss and back. Like my computer's like, yeah, no, we're not. And I felt like, I don't know if it's like an episode from Star Wars where I'm crawling through the sand, like trying to get back to the light. It was a situation, but I feel like I had way too many windows up, too much work. But
understand.
Whatever you covered, I know you did it well. Great interview with Saraya. And I love, did you guys get to Trin's tweet?
We did.
I love all of that. So, if it does happen, Dylan, somebody please put this out because we started it.
Absolutely. So I guess now's a good time to talk about some of the other big news for the women's division across pro wrestling from this weekend. And that would be the return of someone else who appeared on WWT. It's just the things that we're doing around here. I don't know that any of us saw this coming, but on Collision, we saw the return of Jade Cargill. Said, you want to get into that?
Yeah, I believe Chris Sandler was in the past, and then Jade Cargill came out to a really big pop on Saturday night. Came out and dismantled, I believe those were the Renegade Twins that were doing battle with Chris Statlander. And she cleared the ring, but before clearing the ring, it would seem like she would probably make partnership with Statlander, ended up attacking Statlander, and then held up the title. So she's aiming at the TBS title, which is controversial for me because I think that's an interesting place to put her back when she just already had this historic title reign. I think like most fans, we would want to see her challenging for the AEW title, but that can be kind of messy right now with Saraya, and we lost TK again. But TK is most at credit for recently dropping that Jade Cargill interview a week ago where Cargill talked about her plans, was doing music videos. So it was really unexpected that she would be returning to wrestling this soon.
Mm-hmm. And she's muted. You're muted, TK.
I feel like your internet. What did you do?
It's my fault?
Yeah, because you've had internet problems. I feel like I haven't had like these issues.
TK came out here with the fresh lay and the bangs, and she blaming me for stuff. What is that?
Right.
I'm
What is
like,
that?
I don't know what's going on. This has never happened on the stream before. So I mean, I don't know. I'm kind of wary now.
Hilarious.
Monday is a blame Cedric network. That's what this is. Like,
Absolutely
There it is.
hilarious.
But also to reference it, this is just something with the Jade Cargill interview. She did that. It wasn't recent. She did that interview. Dang, I want to say probably before my birthday. So we've been just sitting on it for a while. Not time, like not timing. The timing was perfect, but it was just kind of like there was a vision that I had with it. And I was trying to figure out what to do. We did a different style of interview. So definitely shout out to Jade and her publicist, because her publicist was the one who made it happen. So yeah, great interview. She's awesome. Yeah, a hanger and antenna. I don't know. Maybe I would, Will Jeffrey, because I don't know what's going on. I feel like I'm in like internet from like 2000. Like it's all kind of weird and stuff. So,
how do you guys feel about her taking aim at the TBS title again? Is it just like, I got to get my lick back, or is it just no other plans?
Well, the people in here are talking, and I see Stephanie said, what did she say? I agree with you, Cedric. I want Jade to battle for the top title. I'm going to tell you my thoughts on this. To me, Jade Cargill is the anomaly that AEW did not plan for. When AEW brought Jade Cargill in, think about how they brought her in. They did not train her. She had no promo training at all. People got mad at that promo that she did on Cody. And all of a sudden, here she comes in. Her first match, she wins, opposing Shaq, and then goes on this near 2-year run of being undefeated. They did not anticipate her becoming the female face of the company. Quite frankly, she was always more popular than whoever held the AEW Women's World Champion. And even now, Saraya is probably the closest person that could match her popularity. But even in 2023, Jade is the person. So why they are keeping Jade away out of the world title picture doesn't make any sense to me at all. She doesn't need to go after the TNT title. It's not necessary. Go after the world title at this point. That's my thought.
Can we bring up Rose's comment real quick? Because I kind of disagree.
Okay.
Well, before we do that question, do we know when their deal with TBS is ending?
Hadn't heard anything about a deal with TBS ending.
Well, the reason I ask is that that might be like I feel like, just go with me here. So say Jade gets the title.
Oh, this is crazy. We can't hear you, TK, and I don't know why we can't hear you. This is unreal. This is unreal. I don't know what's happening.
Hey, it ain't my fault, man.
I don't know. Yeah, TK is waxing poetic over there, folks. Just trust us on this. She is bringing a very salient point, and
I think what she was alluding to is the partnership or the deal for AEW television to appear on TBS ending. If you know about that in the chat, shoot us a comment, because I haven't heard anything about that being a possibility.
I hadn't heard about that being a possibility either. I thought, in fact, that they'd kind of extended the deal that they have with both TBS and TNT. So I would be intrigued. Had not heard anything about that. If anybody's heard something on that, let me know. But I think she might have been alluding to perhaps if that's going away, then I'm not sure. But said, what was your thought? Because you had an opposing thought about Jade going after the title.
I think it was Bose saying that Chris Statlander has done more to legitimize the title. And I echo your thoughts about her being an anomaly and being a star, because Jade was drawing so many former champions and athletes from other promotions just to come challenge her, because she was, for lack of better words, the next big thing. So to say Chris Statlander has more so legitimized the title in his brief time, I disagree. Jade was kind of the face of TBS. You pulled up on the TBS network because you got to watch Jade, and you knew that, hey, this person is coming from this promotion to fight Jade. So I don't think it was a title created to make her popular per se. I think she made the title what it was, and which is why she might be back to reclaim that title.
Well, and let me also dig further into this comment. He says Chris is finally making that title important. When Jade had it, it was clear it was created for her to get more TV time than the actual AEW Women's Champion. I disagree with that. What I do believe, because technically I don't think she got more time than whoever the AEW Women's World Champion was, because during that time you had Britt Baker. During that time you had Thunder Rosa. During that time, we had an interim women's champion. We had all of these things. What I do, and matter of fact, during several of those moments, Jade had short matches and Jade even had backstage interviews. But what I think Jade did that the others didn't do is she magnetically and authentically and organically connected with the audience. Jade has a star power that you cannot teach. And even if you gave her 30 seconds on TV, people were going to remember who Jade Cargill is. She's a walking superhero, period. And then we got to see her evolve. And so anytime you get to see somebody evolve and grow on the journey, you automatically jump with them. I think that's one of the reasons why people are digging LA Knight right now, is for those who follow that journey all the way across. Now you see him and you're like, okay, I can connect with this. People like to watch a journey grow. And so I think that's what we saw with Jade. I don't think that the title
is Jade the most recognizable AEW women's star for like somebody who doesn't watch wrestling?
I would say yes. And I would go so far as to say Saraya would be recognizable, but not necessarily for her AEW tenure. So that's my thought on that, which I think is just very intriguing. And then let's see, there's some more comments in here on Jade. Jeffrey says Jade had her baddie section. Yeah, she did. Nikki says Jade needs the PC, as in the Performance Center. And Stephanie agrees with that. You know, I'll go so far as to say this. I think one of the real challenges that AEW has right now that WWE does not, since you mentioned that, is a thing called house shows and the PC. You know, nothing replaces more reps than more reps, right? Like, you're not going to get more experience until you do the thing where you get more experience doing it. And so the advantage of having the PC and having the house shows that WWE has is that you get to work out things that aren't in front of television, so that you get in front of television and you get to work it out. I think that's one of the things that has not helped Jade. Now, the flip side to it is, while AEW does not have a PC, they do give a number of their wrestlers the opportunity to go on the independent circuit. And so, but here's the thing. Not every AEW competitor goes on the AEW circuit or the independent circuit. And there's a challenge in that too, because if you go on the indie circuit and get injured, you know, that creates a problem for what you're trying to do on television. So it's a catch-22, and I don't know how that gets fixed. Let me tell you something about that TK. She will change an entire, I mean, like, this is a whole new background, all the things.
It's a different computer. This is the dedication. Let's hope that I don't get in trouble for using my work computer.
She went to the upstairs room in the mansion and said, let me use
where
this.
she is. She's in them. That's where she is.
Oh,
that's where all
goodness.
the decisions get made.
Wow. I blame you, Cedric.
Now, this is a great comment.
I'll take that on the chin. You know what? I'm an adult.
a great comment from Goth Vegan says, my non-wrestling friends like Jade just because of the fashion she brings to the ring and on the gram.
And that's what I mean about most recognizable. You don't have to watch weekly program and know, like, yo, who is that? then you go down those tea leaves and be like, oh, that's what she does for a living. But
I mean, it also depends on. There's a couple of things too, and I'm sure there's some marketing company or someone that does there's stats for this, because it also depends on. There's different wrestling communities, right? It also depends on the community that you're in, meaning that, even if you're a slight wrestling fan, but you're a fan of Total Divas, like there's a couple of things that play into play into that. Like I think Jade is, but also I just recently watched Saraya's documentary from WWE. I think it was like a couple years ago. Watching that, and then also just seeing a couple of things and seeing things that she talked about, and then just other things. I feel like it just depends on the circle that you're in. But numbers wise, I don't know. I kind of agree with you before I was checking in and out that it might be really close, neck and neck. Which leads me to believe that if Jade gets the TBS championship within the next 6 months, I feel like her and Saraya are going to go up against each other, championship for championship.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, what are you going to ask?
I was going to say, so do you think this leads to kind of a championship merger, or just a title for title where they just hold both titles until somebody drops one of them?
I mean, how crazy would it be if like Jade is like, or Saraya is like a 2-belt type situation? Saraya did talk about in the interview about, having trios and tag teams in AEW. I did the numbers as far as how many female wrestlers are on AEW and ROH, because the ROH wrestlers are on the AEW website, which is a whole nother thing. There's just not enough. There's not enough women to have singles goes rounds for both belts, plus a tag team and or a trios. It's just not enough women on the locker room. It's like 30 to 70. So 70 men to 30 women for AEW. So I don't know. I don't think Saraya dropping anytime soon will be beneficial. But I also feel like you can't just put it on Jade. Like the chase, her chase is what's going to be interesting. Like, her, maybe losing, because she's already lost. So that thing about her is no longer there. So now it's like, maybe she does get that chance and she loses, but now the chase to go through the locker room, and then, a year later or 6 months later or whatever, to see that, I want to see that. I want to see like, that type of, that, we know what it is for her to have the belt, but what does that chase look like? So,
to your credit, the chase actually builds more credibility with fans. It makes them feel like what the professor said, that you're following the journey organically.
Right. And then I do agree with Nikki. Chris is a better wrestler. She's been in the game for a longer period of time. Definitely agree with that. And I think she's definitely deserving of the belt. And I think that she shouldn't drop to Jade. But I feel like as a champion and mainstream media and bringing more eyes, because, and we're going to get to this, the deal with Endeavors coming down the pipe like tomorrow, which like I said on Friday, I'm excited about. But I just feel like it's, mainstream media eyes is very, very important for bigger promotions, because they have the wrestling fans locked in. We're going to watch, or we're going to kind of keep in the know of AEW, WWE, etc. But like, the mainstream, the CBSs, the hip hop DXs, all those other stuff, like they're going to want somebody like a Jade. They're not, when I look at mainstream media publications, I'm seeing they talk about Roman Reigns, they talk about Jade, sometimes Bianca. They talk about Trim. They always talk about Bianca. So it's like selected few people that you see. I mean, Ronda Rousey. There's selected few people that you see that make it past the wrestling sites.
Yeah, and I think what we forget sometimes is, as much as people want to draw the line between pro wrestling and sports entertainment, at the end of the day, the money shows up when any of these athletes move into mainstream spaces. And that, whether we acknowledge it or not, we put our ones up, means that they want to ensure that somebody breaks through. WWE, and you think about all the talent that WWE has, what you just mentioned is literally on one hand, the amount of people from WWE that have broken through at this particular point in the modern era, even with this massive boom that we're having right now. So on the AEW side, the fact that we can only mention one name that has broken through, rest assured, as the other TK is trying to figure out what's going to be helpful and beneficial financially, trust and believe there's going to be, I think, a quicker push to get a title or greater spotlight on Jade Cargill, without question. I would even argue, and I have no idea when Jade was initially intended to come back, but it wouldn't surprise me that this comeback was rushed or was accelerated. I like that word better. With obviously CM Punk going away, who was for them a recognizable star outside of AEW, you know. So if your recognizable stars in the mainstream are CM Punk and Jade Cargill, and CM Punk goes away, you got to bring in Jade, you know. And so I think this gets really interesting, because what we have to always consider is the business aspect of it. And the business aspect of it says we get more money when we've got recognizable names. We get bigger sponsors. It gives us greater opportunities to do things. And for all the talk about Young Bucks, the Elite, all of those things, none of those guys are bringing in that mainstream money.
Right.
It's Jade Cargill.
And then also, let's, you know, I'm not saying that
Sunday mornings we call that a word.
I'm not saying that we pushed, you know, the fake TK into doing this, but there has also been a lot of talk about, you know, women's matches.
Yes, there has.
So, you know, from Lyric asking overseas and the sign that was put up before that, and you know, there's been discussions. So, you know, one way to, you know, bringing one person back is not necessarily going to shut up the conversation. It's just like somebody saying, oh, like, I love Black people, I have that one Black friend, but it's not going to shut up the conversation. However, you know, that might have been something too. It's like, okay, they're talking about, and you know, like I said, I think on Friday, like, the fake TK seems like a nice guy, and he's a fan of wrestling, and he's trying to do the best that he can, but he has so much going on, and he has to let the reins go sometime. I feel like this was the easiest solution for him, if that was one of the criteria, where it's like, oh, they're calling for women's matches. You know, I don't feel like these women would draw, you know, much TV time, but Jade will. Let me call back Jade.
Yeah, and
I think that segues into something, but go ahead.
I was going to say, what people forget too is, as there is the massive call for these matches and stars, remember, it takes time to create stars. That doesn't just happen overnight. So while there are a number of wrestlers who have great potential in AEW to become stars like that, if you're trying to make stars happen, you got to bring in a star.
I mean, yes and no.
If you want immediate impact. Now, I think they're going to build. Now, be clear, there are stars in the making in AEW right now. No questions asked. And I think in the next year or so, we'll be able to start referring to them as stars. But if you're talking about the here and now, again, when your recognizable name like Punk goes away, then yeah, you bring back Bryan Danielson. Yeah, you bring back, again, recognizable names on a mainstream level. Ah, yes, the disappearing act. So now might be a great time. Here we go. And she just
teleported.
I'm losing my mind. Oh my God. How did she do that?
What?
Let's see.
Yo. Okay. Yeah, you got.
Hey, 2K got 2075 technology.
Good Lord. How did she
it's just two different computers, y'all. You just relax.
And you took okay.
And see, this is
I have another computer right over there.
The room is different.
I mean, the whole thing changed.
I mean, look, I don't think y'all believe me when I say I be working. Like, I don't like.
This is why you're the real
I'm glad me
TK.
and Professor think alike. I like it. We just didn't let that ride because
That whole thing was different, yo. I was like, what?
It's literally a different angle, folks. It's literally a different angle.
With a completely different background. Like you look like you're in
it's
two different places.
Well, maybe I'll get to that. That's what I need. Two different people. I need two. If I can have a twin, actually triplets. Yeah.
Good Lord.
Stephanie's saying Tony needs to delegate to people who truly care about women's wrestling and can craft the stories. I mean, I definitely agree, Stephanie. And like I said on Friday, and I think I said it a couple minutes ago, I feel like I think he believes in women's wrestling, but I feel.
Yes.
Thanks, JD. I feel like he believes in women's wrestling. I just feel like you could only do so much with 24 hours in a day. Like it's like I'm feeling that like today. It's like, oh, I got this done, but I still have all of this to do, and I have this much time. Like, and that's just small fries compared to what he's running.
I'll also say this, what the other TK has is something that we've not seen in the wrestling business before, a multi-million-dollar company being built from the ground up. And so, I don't think any of us around here were alive when the WWE was 5 years old, right? We weren't alive. So we couldn't even tell you. And the environment was different. They didn't have this kind of massive TV deal doing live weekly television shows every single week. Like it wasn't all, this is so good. It wasn't all of those things. So I think as wrestling fans, we're going to have to, and I know people don't like this, but we're going to have to actually be patient. You're watching a building being built from the ground up. And
that's for you, JD.
Yeah, for those listening, that wasn't for me. That was for JD. And so I do think we have to remind ourselves a multi-million-dollar company is being built before our eyes, doing now 2 live television shows a week, on major cable networks. That is not easy. They just put 81,000 paid fans in Wembley Stadium after 4 years. Like I sometimes think, we want this 4-year-old company to do what the 55-year-old company has fully yet to do. So I think we got to be fair in our expectations in that regard.
Yeah, no, I mean, Shadow Wrangler saying TK doesn't believe the fake TK. The fake TK doesn't believe in women's wrestling.
You got to clarify that, Shadow Ranger. You got to put.
Yeah, you have to clarify. He said his favorite promotions were ECW and ROH, 2 promotions that barely featured women. I mean, maybe it's not his favorite, but I don't think because there's some people who in this day and age, they don't even include it. And he could have definitely not included women's wrestling. He could have definitely made it a smaller part. I mean, take, and MLW is a way smaller scale, but you have promotions who it's just way more men. So it might be men. And also too, like I've always talked about this, it's kind of tribalism. You're always going to gravitate towards what looks like you. And he's a man. So he's always going to gravitate towards that type of sports, just like how, and for me, I gravitate towards Black women, but if you're from the islands, there's there's certain levels to it. So, I mean, I feel like I wouldn't say, Nikki, that he doesn't care. I feel like he just doesn't know how to put it together. Because I feel like if he didn't care at all, then like why he could let a lot of things go to the wayside.
Yeah. If you have expectations when they set the high expectations themselves and started in a more recent time frame and generation. Still, though, I want to be okay. Let's go here.
Well, read the Impact for our listeners.
So the comment says, but how can you be fair with expectations when they set, and they is, I'm assuming AEW, sets the high expectations themselves and started in a more recent time frame and generation. So let me speak
started
to that.
Kind of like barely pre-pandemic. So
right. So this company started literally in 2019. Again, I look at Impact Wrestling, which began in 2002, and didn't start highlighting women's wrestling until 2008. So for Impact, that was 6 years. Okay, we haven't hit 6 years for AEW. There's some,
That's for you, Dwayne.
for all of you who are listening, you've got to tune in live, because there are things that you will see that we just can't translate here via audio. But this goes back to really what I'm saying in terms of expectations. You know, think about it. Right now, we still only have a handful of all female promotions, right? There's the Shimmers and the Shines and the Wows of the world, and Wow's not doing live TV, right? And some can make arguments about how even WoW is presented and things of that nature, because you can't find it in the same place, syndication, blah, 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 blah. There's not for everybody who feels like there's a perfect scenario for this, there isn't. It takes work. Building all of these things take work. My God, we live in a country that still hasn't figured out equality. We live in a country where there is still gender inequity when it comes to pay. Okay, so I want us to just kind of consider all of these things as we're considering, you know, our critiques of all of these organizations, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I just say, again, give certain things some time, because as we're moving, you know, we're getting ready to talk obviously about WWE and how business has moved for them in such a way where now we're at a point where we can have a massive sale and we can move pro wrestling into the billion-dollar stage, right? There's a whole lot of things. There's a whole lot of things happening here, folks. My Lord. And Golf Vegan says it correctly. Geez. Shimmer is on hiatus. So these kinds of things are challenging. And the challenges we see gender-wise in pro wrestling is no different than any other sport. There are gender challenges right now in soccer, in basketball, all of these sports where women are fighting for equality to be looked at in the same ways as their male counterparts.
And then last thing, just to, and I'm hoping that I had so many questions for the fake TK at that scrum. But one of the things that, you know, I personally would challenge him is if it's a numbers thing, because I think Dwayne might have said it, or somebody said, or Jeffrey might have said it in the chat. If it's a numbers thing, then just show us the numbers. If you can show us, hey, the ratings dip when these matches come on and they happen to have women in it, then that leads it on to us who want to see more women's wrestling to tune in and to you know, do more tweets, to do all the things that we need to do to see more women's wrestling. But if you're not giving us the reason behind it, then, you know, so that's kind of my thing, because he doesn't, I mean, we've seen him on countless occasions, you know, circle around the answers. And if he were to drop that, that's a mic drop right there. That's not a feelings thing. It's a business. So if he's like, look, here is the last 2 months, and you see that dip, this is always when women's wrestling happens. So, like, you know, we got to pay bills. So, you know, definitely check that out. Nikki's saying the numbers are public. Then we'll look. Well, I don't know, Bosa, you can look into that for me, because I know that's what you're going to do next. So we'll see, because I had somebody on was it last 2 weekends ago say that when a women's match happened on Collision, the ratings actually went up. So
who knows? Who knows?
Well, the fake he's the only one who knows.
I don't know if y'all looking at the ticker, so we might need Excalibur today, because there was a lot of stuff on that sheet.
Well, let's hit the end of the era.
Yeah, I was gonna say, because that's probably the biggest, the other big story, and that is that tonight, what a night, as you prepare to watch Monday Night Raw and celebrate the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion, we'll also be celebrating the end of an era, as tonight marks the final episode of Monday Night Raw, where Vince McMahon has the overall voting control and sole ownership of WWE, as it is believed that tomorrow the sale of WWE to Endeavor will be complete. And when that is complete, things will change a bit, because now 49% of the major voting power will belong to Vince McMahon, with the other 51% belonging to the new owners who will have that kind of stake in the firm. The WWE shareholders will have the remaining 49%. So it's literally a brand new day that's going to happen tomorrow. Tonight, the literal end of an era. Vince McMahon, after tonight, will no longer be the majority owner of WWE.
I'm optimistic about it. I think it can only be a good thing, unless only thing that worries me is if we have kind of like a Black Monday scenario where we get a lot of cuts, and I don't think it'll affect that much talent. But I'm talking about people who do the legwork, the crews, the producers, things like that. I'm worried about that. But I think ultimately, when you want to put on big spectacles, I think they can put those dollars together and do more things overall on an international scale. So I think it'll be interesting.
I don't know if it's gonna affect. I mean, okay, because I was about
There
to
you go.
lose my. Can you hear me? I
Yes,
was
we
about
can
to
hear
lose
you.
my ish.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's gonna affect. I feel like it might affect a few people here and there, but I don't feel like it's gonna be a massive. WWE is a big. I mean, it doesn't go off the air. Like it's
Right.
every week for the full year.
Mhm.
You know, if anything, I feel like, and it depends on who like ultimately takes over and makes all those decisions to help improve it. You know, I'm willing to believe they're going to bring on some type of consulting, because that's typically what they do, and they're going to go through every position and see essentially how they can bump up numbers and strategy and stuff like that. But I don't think there's going to be like a massive layoff. And that's a numbers thing. You know, if they feel like they can bring a whole nother team that's going to make more money, I guess. But wrestling is a very, unique business. So you can't just bring in anybody who says that they
Right.
know marketing and they know numbers, because then you also have to still know the wrestling fans and the history of wrestling and all these other little elements. So, I mean, I don't think so. But again, just a Canadian trying to make it in America.
You know, I think it's interesting because the WWE as a brand right now is about as hot as it's ever been when it comes to box office, when it comes to merch, all the measurements, socials, and things. Literally every month they're breaking another record relative to their premium live events and things of that nature. The product that is being put out right now, this is the ultimate position you want to be in if you are Endeavor taking over WWE. Nobody wants to take over a sinking ship, and WWE is anything but that right now. So I think Endeavor will endeavor to do all that they can to just continue to support and really make this even bigger, even better, make it even more money. So I think this is going to get interesting. I've heard a lot of things in terms of whether there's been hiring freezes, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I'm interested to see
There
how
has.
all of, I didn't want to officially say it, but, what I do think is it's going to be interesting to see how all of those things begin to play out. Will we start to see new talent in front of the camera, behind the camera? How long will it take before that dust settles, before those kinds of things are starting to happen? Because you have to imagine how much more attractive WWE will become to certain people once this Endeavor thing does go through. Because, 40 million on AEW side, 21 billion on WWE. There's a big bit of a difference. So I'll be really interested to see how all of that shakes out and what this does, because the other thing we haven't talked about as well is WWE media rights are coming up for question again. And it is now wide open for just about anybody to have that conversation. I understand Endeavor does a great job with really negotiating those kinds of deals. They've done it for some rather large entities like the Olympics and Wimbledon and all these places. So this gets very interesting for WWE and where we'll be able to consume it and how much money WWE and Endeavor can make from this.
I mean, if anybody from Endeavor is listening, I would just advocate insurance for the wrestlers, please.
Yeah, I think at this point we got enough money for that. I would
just-
love to see that happen.
Just,
I really, really would.
just
And
saying.
I think that'd make that an even better place to be, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many possibilities, and again, it's all speculation. So we'll see what's gonna happen with that. I mean, as far as now that you kind of broke down the numbers, because when you read the headlines, you're thinking, okay, they're gonna ride off into the sunset, but they're not. They're still gonna be there. So, and I feel like Vince is gonna figure out a way. You know, he's still like. He's almost like Ric Flair level. Like he's always going to be around until he's no longer around. So,
Yeah.
but we've seen when Vince lost control and Triple H took over, and those storylines and how it's improved. And I don't think we went back. So that's a good thing. So, I mean, as far as creative control, I mean, as long as it stays where that is, I'm like super happy. And I don't think Vince is ever going to get those reins back ever. So, you know, I think we're good with that way.
Yeah. Because one of the things that I think would be incredible is the difference here is Endeavor is a bit more objective. And what I mean by that is, you know, Vince has been running it and it's been his way or the highway. But with Endeavor being able to see like, okay, well, this is how things have been. Now, we were talking about numbers earlier. They've got all the numbers now to prove, you know, okay, so wow, this was the biggest WrestleMania and Vince wasn't in control of creative. And there was the biggest this and we did all this international. And so those numbers aren't lying. They're going to only want those. So they're not going to put like Vince back in creative. And at this point, like I said before, Vince has so many other things he's going to be responsible for. That won't be, and he's going to have a boss. Let's remember that.
Oh, he's not gonna like that. JD saying, but wouldn't the UFC have to give insurance to fighters too? I mean, I think I think anybody. I personally, I just think everybody, and this is, I guess, the Canadian in me. I feel like everybody should get insurance, but that's a whole nother issue. But for people who put their body on the line, you know, long term, and sometimes these companies pick and choose who they want to support in those endeavors, and I feel like everybody doing all those things, and even the wear and tear, like say if you don't get injured but now you're retired, those injuries creep up on you. So I feel like in general there should be, you know, I mean, treat it as if like another job, like take some out of the paycheck and put it aside for insurance where, you know, you can access it yourself and not the company has to pay for this. So I mean, we'll see what happens. You know, who I'm just TK of WWE, WWT. But let's finish on like a good note. Let's talk about Sonny.
Yeah, so we finally got our first public comments from Sonny Kiss since ultimately being quietly removed from the AEW roster. TK was actually on a scoop and got to ask the fake TK what was going on. And what I love about that interaction between a world of TKs is that she didn't leave any wiggle room in the questioning. She was just like, you asked in a way that was like, Sonny Kiss was removed, what happened? And if you heard the interview, it was more so skated around and probably not answered directly. But Sonny came to Twitter this past Saturday, said, 4 years of living my dream, traveling, making everlasting friendships, working with childhood heroes, growing into the human I've become right before everyone's eyes. Of course, being a part of some historical events with groundbreaking wrestling promotion, All Elite Wrestling. I've made quite a few mistakes along the way, but I've learned some valuable lessons too. I'm incredibly grateful for it all. In December, I'll be 30 years old with 10 years of wrestling under my belt. The fun part is I haven't nearly touched the surface of what I am capable of. I knew my wrestling journey in pro wrestling would not be an easy one, regardless of my talents. The best part of it all is that I showed people like me that anything is possible when you're working your ass off for it. It may not come easy, but it will come. Sometimes you have to fall all the way down to reignite that fiery passion again. So now what? I'm the Concrete Road, Sonny Kiss, and I am a free agent, and I'm so ready for this next chapter. Let's continue to break those barriers down, shatter those glass ceilings, and make shit happen. Where to next? And I believe we broke last week that Sonny would be with House of Glory Wrestling, Wrestling. So happier pastures for that. And this is the first public statement, and more of a direct answer than the one that we got from the fake TK.
Yeah, no, I'm so happy, and it's crazy. It's 10 years. I don't know if you guys know of a wrestler by the name of Chris Wolf. We interviewed her a couple of times, and I actually need to look up what she's been up to. But she was in the industry. I'm not kind of making the comparisons, but she had a long tenure in the industry as well. And she left at a point where she can go off and have a whole nother life. Like, it's great that Sonny's done so much. And if she never goes to a WWE or AEW, like, she's opening doors. And now it's for the other wrestlers to step forward. I don't think she's going anywhere. I feel like there's way more things to happen. But just think about 10 years ago. Like, Sonny's one of a kind at the moment. So it's I feel like wrestling in the next 10 years is going to be, something totally different. And I'm excited for it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think, again, people forget that Sonny goes all the way back to the Lucha Underground days, and so Sonny has been doing so much, and to be able to have Lucha and AEW and be really kind of an AEW original in this space, was really, really important. And so, whether or not people liked the way Sonny was used or not, Sonny had the exposure. And that, I think, is majorly important. And now, Sonny gets the opportunity to do what is really on her heart and mind to do. And that's going to be fun to watch. We've seen a number of wrestlers make decisions to bet on themselves and go independent and get to do what's on their heart. Matt Cardona, really comes to mind in terms of people who recently have done it and done it well. So we'll see what's in the mind of Sonny Kiss at this point, but congratulations.
Oh, I'm looking for this clip an archival clip that I clipped out the other day of Sonny. Oh, I found it. Give me 2 seconds, y'all. Oh, can it? Damn it. I don't think I can download it. Oh yeah, I can. Here we go. While we do that, what did we get into, Cedric, what you did this weekend?
Is that a segment? Why is this? I think we did. I told the professor that I worked. NFL started, so that's a part of my career. So yeah, that's what I did this weekend. Is prepared for the NFL football season. Watched UFC and worked all day yesterday doing stats.
Nice.
Did the video? Do I got to give you some more buffer? I gotta.
Oh, well, we can't hear her now. I don't know why we can't hear her. This day we will. Oh, she's muted. That's why we can't hear her. Okay, there we go.
I'm not gonna try for this clip because I feel like my computer is gonna crash again. But when I do get it, I'll post it. But we have a really great clip of an interview we did with Sonny back in the day after Buzz Days. But with that being said, we took too much time. So you guys definitely stay locked for the WOW show. But Professor, where can everybody find you?
You can find me across all the socials at Bonnerfied. You can check out my wrestling commentary work with Southern Honor Wrestling on IWTV. And this weekend just debuted in another wrestling promotion called IWE, Intense Wrestling Entertainment. And you'll be able to check out that commentary work on IWTV this week as well. So I'm really excited about that. Also, my work with the Nightmare Factory on YouTube and with Battle Slam on Fight TV. And of course, I'm here on all things WWT and all the other various and sundry podcasts. Check it out.
And said, where can everybody find you?
Real quick, Ronnie, I thought Izzy's loss was terrible. I felt like he lost that fight more than Sean won, just to answer your question. But you can find me on the gram at Said Is The Answer. You can find me on Twitter at Said Says. And there's a number of ways that you can take my thoughts. Obviously here, Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays on WWT Live. And I write articles, dailyddt.com. For one, you can check out some articles there. I did the Saraya article, clips from TK's interview, as well as there's some other articles I did for WWT as well. Also, shout out to The Rock for helping other people's families other than his own. He's actually kept the Wyndham fridges and houses stocked full of groceries the past few weeks in light of the passing of Bray. So I think that's really dope. And give somebody a hug today.
Yeah, well said.
I like that. I mean, we can get into The Rock, but we won't get into all that. So with that being said, you can follow me on everything at TK Trinidad. Thank you guys for putting up with my internet, or Cedric's internet, I should say. Until then, we'll see you on Wednesday. Is this gonna play? Are you gonna play for me? Oh, there you go. Hey peeps, TK Trinidad here, boss lady of Women's Wrestling Talk. And I want to say thank you so much for watching, because you've got millions of options. Plus, you don't have to worry about sharing your password to check us out. But while you're here, hopefully you know we have so many more shows to watch, like Turnbuckle Glam, Raw post-show, WoW post-show, AEW Dynamite post-show, Women's Wrestling Army post-show, NXT post-show, Impact Wrestling post-show, AEW Rampage and SmackDown Live post-show, On the Scroll, ROH post-show, WWT Live, plus all of our interviews with the hottest women's wrestlers in the game. Make sure that you like, comment, and subscribe. Check out our website at www.talkpod.com and follow us on all social media platforms at www.talkpod, and make sure to spread the word. That means send this to the group chat. Yes, even the person with the green button. Thanks again so much for watching Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet. Ciao for now.
Women's Wrestling Talk, the #1 women's wrestling show on the planet.